Just by a show of hands, how many people have been here the first 2 nights? Okay, so the majority of people. For those of you that have not been here, I'll just give you a quick introduction of who I am. I am a medical doctor, an MD, trained in allopathic medicine in Colorado. And when I started to practice medicine, I saw that my patients were not improving over time, but they were actually declining. More medications, more problems. And so I simply asked myself a question: what can I do to help them put their lives back together again? That led me on a journey of research and exploration, thousands of articles, hundreds of books, and I came back to the simple conclusion that the keys and the secrets to longevity and health are found in the Bible, beginning in Genesis with the food that God created, secondarily, taking care of our emotional health, and then third, getting our spirit life in order. And when we do those 3 things, like it says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, we are spirit, soul, and body. When we align our spirit, when we align our soul, and we do the right things for our body, the vast majority of diseases are reversible, and almost all diseases are preventable. So I started treating my patients this way. I took it in faith, and I stepped out. I took my prescription pad, and I started to write prescriptions for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, prescriptions for forgiveness. And guess what? My patients got better. Heart disease reversed, diabetes reversed, autoimmune diseases reversed, medications discontinued, lives rekindled, health strengthened, back out in life again, simply by changing what they believed or thought and what they ate predominantly. It's powerful. Somebody asked me one of the first nights, they said to me, "Why are you here?" It's a good question. But I understood a little bit more when they were asking me. They said, "Well, you're not selling anything." I said, "Yeah, that's correct." And they said, "You're not getting paid." I said, "That's correct." They said, "Well, why are you here?" I said, "I am here because I care about you. I am here because I am fulfilling a calling that God's put on my life. I am here to help you fulfill your calling that God has put on your life. And that's why I'm here. Because I'm walking out my calling, and my calling is to inspire you to rise up, to strengthen your body, and to walk out your calling while you're here on this earth. And my calling is this. My calling is to help you find, through what God has given us, new life that you can walk and speak life, new love that you can be love to the world, new light because you are the light of the world, new liberty that you can set captives free, new leaning on God that you can trust Him and walk in faith, and new laboring for the kingdom, that you can labor for the kingdom. That is why I'm here. And that's why I'm teaching you these things, because I am called and I want to share with you what I have learned, because it has transformed my life, it has transformed my family's life, and it has transformed thousands of people's lives that I've taken care of over the last 12 or 13 years. And it is powerful. That's why I'm here. So, a quick review then for those of you that were not here. We talked about the challenge of the food that we eat today was not the food that was created in Genesis 1:29. God created plants. He grew trees, seed-bearing plants, green plants, and that's what fed all of the creatures in Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They ate plants. That was the predominant diet back then. After the flood, God said, "Just as I gave you the green plant, so now I give you everything that creepeth on the ground." It was a secondary compensation for a world that had changed. But if we look at like the ancient Israelites, they consumed animal products 2 or 3 times a week at the most. Not as many animals as we eat today. But the biggest change in our diet has been what? Processed food. That is right. So I asked this question in the beginning of the week, and we'll find out how many people were listening. So how many pounds of sugar did the average person eat in 1 year in 1900? 5 pounds of sugar per person per year, right? How many pounds of sugar does the average person eat today? Sugar and sweeteners. 170 pounds. Very good. Excellent. You get an A. 170 pounds. Now, sometimes when I ask this question, the tendency for all of us is to say in our minds, "That's not me. I don't eat 170 pounds, right? That's got to be somebody else. Can't be me. But that's the average person. And it's deceptive because none of us are buying 170 pounds of sweeteners or sugars. But we are secondarily buying these sugars and sweeteners when we buy the food of the world, the food that is manufactured in plants, put in bags, boxes, and cans, and purchased off the shelf. They put sugar in there. And I mentioned earlier it's there for a few reasons. One, when you eat sugar, it gives you a hit, and you feel good after you eat the sugar. And the manufacturers of these foods know that. They hire scientists to create a hedonistic point, a feel-good point for their food, so that when you eat it, you feel good. And just like a drug, you feel good for a short time, but then you feel bad. You go through withdrawal symptoms. And in order to feel good again, you go back and purchase the same food, and you feel good, and you reinforce to yourself that you were hungry and you needed the food to have mental clarity, to have energy, to feel good, so that you weren't fatigued anymore. And so you have been roped in and taken hostage by the food and the food industry. And little by little, decade after decade of eating this food, it starts to erode your health. It invades your body. It suppresses your immune system. It causes inflammation in the arteries of your heart. It causes inflammation in your cells. Your DNA shifts. You can start to form cancer. And sugar feeds cancer. Bite by bite, year after year, you begin to accumulate disease problems in your body. And it's very deceptive because when you're 25 and you're eating these foods, you feel indestructible, right? I was there. 25, chocolate malts, chocolate ice cream, chips, anything. And I woke up the next day and I felt great. And so I kept doing it, just like many of the young people do today. 35, maybe you start to feel it. 45, you look down and you're like, boy, I need another hole in my belt. What happened? And then you go to the doctor and they say, your blood pressure's elevated. And you're like, how'd that happen? 55, have some chest pain, you go to the doctor and you had a heart attack. 60, you go to the doctor and they do some blood work and they say you have ovarian or prostate cancer. The diseases accumulate year after year because it's repetitive damage to the body. Now, what's amazing to me is that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And God created an incredible body that has a level of resilience that allows us to endure bite after bite, damage after damage, emotional burdens, all of these things. We can bear them a long time. We have a lot of redundancy. We have a lot of extra that God's given us. But eventually, these decisions and choices that we make have consequences. They have consequences immediately. What we eat and what we think or believe have immediate consequences in our life. And I'll tell you about those in a second. But the real problem is that it's repetitive abuse over time. Repetitively eating the wrong foods causes repetitive inflammation and damage that accumulate and eventually manifest as disease. Repetitively thinking or believing lies or the wrong things causes injury over time that eventually manifests in relational problems or self-destructive issues. But it's little by little over time, and that's the deception of this. And that's why sometimes when I speak, I have people come up and tell me, I don't believe that. I ate this way for 10 years and I'm fine. And I say, well, how do you know that you're fine? How do you know that you're fine? I feel good. Well, so did the person that was diagnosed with cancer before they went in to see the doctor. Many times they felt fine too. When you get lab work, is a lab work really a clean bill of health? No, it's simply a measure that says that these few numbers are okay, but it does not necessarily mean that you are not accumulating or acquiring disease or that you have cancer growing somewhere in your body. When they've done autopsy studies, they have found that in 10-year-olds today, because of the food they're eating, they're developing hardening of their arteries in their hearts, atherosclerosis. When they do autopsy studies in people as they're aging, they find that by the age of 80, 90% of males have cancer growing in their prostates or thyroid. Doesn't have to be that way. It's because of the way that we're living and the way that we're thinking. It's powerful, isn't it? So the secret is change what you believe and think and change what you eat. It's that simple, and it's in the Bible. We're just going back to the original solution that God gave us. But it looks so vastly different today because when we change what we eat, and we're eating mostly the food that God grew out of the ground, whole plant foods, compared to what other people are eating, they look at us and say, "What is wrong with you? You're eating that? You can't live on vegetables." But you can, and you can live very well. But it looks so different because we've come so far in the last 100 years. The food today does not look like the same food that it did 100 years ago. And when you change your food, you can reverse heart disease, diabetes, and all of these diseases. When you change what you think and believe, you will change your emotional makeup, and it changes your physical body, as we'll talk about. Now, I mentioned earlier that when you think, it actually affects your body. Now, the research today is really interesting. They find that when you think a thought, as I am talking to you right now, and you're listening, and you are processing that in your brain, the cells in your brain are receiving the information, and the cells are manufacturing proteins, and the cells are laying down new connections in your brain as I am talking. So my words are creating substance in your brain. Weight, something that has weight, something that you can measure and hold is being created because I am speaking to you right now. Isn't that powerful? It's especially powerful, too, when we understand that we speak to ourselves every day. We speak to ourselves. When I speak to you, you have a filter up. You're thinking, does this guy know what he's talking about? Where is he from? Why is he here? Is this really true? Do I need to eat plants? Does that really make a difference? I don't believe that because I read this other book over here. You're filtering as I'm talking, right? When you speak to yourself, there's no filter. You speak, you believe, your brain manufactures protein, and it lays down connections. And so when you speak to yourself, you're actually creating mass and weight and connections in your brain. So one of the most powerful ways to change the way that you feel is to change the way you speak to yourself. The research shows that in order to have a healthy relationship, if Alton and I have a healthy relationship, I need to speak 5 things positively into his life for every negative thing that I would speak to him, and then we have a healthy relationship, and he looks forward to seeing me. If I speak negatively to him 5 times and only 1 positive, when I come around the corner, Alton's going to be going this way. It's like, I don't want to see that guy because he hears negative. So in order for us to have a healthy relationship with ourselves and with others, we need to speak positively into their lives, speak life into their lives. That's what the Bible tells us to do too. Encourage one another, equip, exhort, right? Those are the words that we read. We do those things because it actually changes your brain. And when you change your brain, it also changes your hormones. And when you change your hormones, it reduces inflammation, your arteries open up, your blood pressure goes down, your immune system function goes up, and it kills cancer cells. Beautiful. A beautiful, powerful effect. When you eat things like sugar, it has the same effect in your body as speaking negatively to yourself. When you eat sugar, it goes into your body, and within 2 hours, it is causing inflammation in the arteries of your heart. Within 2 hours, it is feeding cancer cells. Within 2 hours, it is disrupting the bacteria that live in your gut, and those bacteria turn over and begin to produce inflammation that goes out into your body. Within 2 hours, it can cause inflammation in your joints. So it's not neutral. I want to read to you a definition real quick before we move on. So this is from Webster's Dictionary. And then I'll let you sit on this while we talk about it. So the word poison. Anybody looked up this definition? A substance that causes injury, illness, or death, especially by chemical means, something destructive. A substance that inhibits another reaction. That's the definition of a poison. So how does that play into sugar? Is sugar a food, or is sugar a poison? If you eat it and it causes destruction and disrupts chemical reactions, causes injury to the body, is it really a food, or is it a poison? Now, it's not a potent poison because you can eat it for 50 years. It's not like I ate a big spoonful of rat poison. Might not wake up tomorrow, but it is still a poison by the definition in Webster's dictionary, right? Okay, so I'm going to do this because I want you to think about this, and I'm going to do something that will hopefully help you to think about this in a different way, all right? So have you ever seen anybody light up a Long John before? So why did I do this? So, are cigarettes harmful to the body? How many people here, by a show of hands, would say that cigarettes are harmful to the body? Okay. Now, back in the 1940s and 50s, if you went to your doctor, they might actually recommend that you take up cigarette smoking. If you look at the advertisements from the 40s and 50s, they would say things like 86% of doctors recommend Camel. Or give your throat a vacation. These are real. Give your throat a vacation, smoke menthols. All of the advertising suggested that cigarettes were okay. If you went to see the doctor, he may actually light up a cigarette while you're in his office. If you went to the hospital, they smoked in the hospitals. They smoked on the airplanes. They smoked in the restaurants. Everywhere they smoked. And nobody thought anything about it, right? Today, we eat this stuff all the time. If I go to the bank, they hang my children sugar. If we go to the insurance agent, they hand my children sugar. If you go to the restaurant, you can order sugar. If you go to the doctor's office, they give you sugar. And the doctor might be chewing on sugar himself. So what I'm proposing to you is that it's the same. When you smoke a cigarette, we all know, and we've all been trained, that smoking cigarettes harms the body. You smoke it, it damages cells, causes cancer. Correct? But what we all don't believe is that by eating this stuff, it has the same effect in our body. That when we choose to eat garbage, this is not food, when we choose to eat this stuff, and we consume it, and it tantalizes our taste buds for just a moment, it goes down into our bodies, and it causes damage. It erodes our health. It causes heart disease. I'm going to put this down now. It's running down my finger. It causes disease, and it is a poison. And it is what the majority of people are consuming today. 63% of the American diet, average American diet, thank you very much, David. 63% of the average American diet today is processed food, full of processed flours, processed sugars. Thank you very much. And so we are basically, it's like smoking sugar. We're doing the same thing. It has the same effect in our body. Does that make sense? So if you think about a Long John next time, you'll think about a cigarette. Hopefully you'll make that crossover. Now it's my It is my desire to see our nation shift just the way we have with tobacco. That people don't smoke in airplanes, they don't smoke in restaurants, they don't smoke in doctors' offices, they don't smoke in hospitals. But it's my desire that we see the same cultural shift with food, that we do not serve garbage in restaurants, in doctors' offices, in banks, on airplanes, that we actually start serving food that brings health and life to people. That is my desire, the same cultural shift. And that all of these advertisements that we see today that say this kind of food, this burger is crafted for your craving, true advertisement, crafted for your craving. Is it good for you? What's it doing? It's treating your food addiction. Or there's a soda that says goodness in a bottle. Is it really goodness in a bottle? It is not goodness in a bottle, is it? It's only good for a moment on your tongue. So I encourage you to start shifting your mindset and belief systems around these foods. Start to see them for what they are and recognize that that's not what God has given us. God's given us something far more powerful that will change our bodies and change our minds. It will change the way we feel. It will change the way we think. When you eat these foods, it actually changes the chemistry in your brain and changes your mood when you eat these foods. It's powerful. So in the closing time here, I just want to talk about some practical application. So what is it that I'm actually talking about? What am I actually recommending that you eat? So I'm actually recommending that you eat mostly plants. So I'm not telling you to be vegan or vegetarian. I'm saying you need to eat mostly plants. That's what the research shows. That is what, when I work with other physicians, tens of thousands of physicians around the world know this as well. When they transition their patients to a diet of mostly whole plant foods, most of the diseases go away. So those whole plant foods are dark leafy greens, kale, collard, bok choy, chard, watercress, all of these beautiful dark greens, romaine lettuce, the dark lettuces. It is the broccoli family, cauliflower. It is the Brussels sprouts and asparagus. It's the sweet potatoes and the squash family. It's the whole grains like quinoa and brown rice. It is beans and lentils and chickpeas. It's weaving all of these beautiful foods that God gave us, all the marvelous colors, all the different flavors, weaving them together in dishes that are delicious. Was food meant to be good? Do you think food was intended by God to be delicious? Do you think He intended us to enjoy every bite of our food? Yes, He did. That's why He gave us this beautiful tongue with taste buds. He wants us to enjoy our food and enjoy it richly and enjoy it in relationship together. But our taste buds have been hijacked by the processed food and the unhealthy food of our Western culture, and it's to the detriment of our health. The beautiful aspect of God's creation, when we enjoy His food, we enjoy it in our taste buds for a moment. We enjoy the benefits of the food in our body for decades after decade. So the food is intended to be delicious. Now, as you start to make a transition, it takes a while for your taste buds to change. It can take as little as 2 weeks for your taste buds to begin shifting. It can take as long as 60 days. And sometimes it can take 3 months for your brain's reward system to stop craving sugar. That is why one of my first recommendations is if you have those things in your house that you know are going to tempt you and call to you, get them out of the house. The food is powerful, and the food can overpower your willpower. And so it's better to get it out of the house while you're making a transition. So remove those foods, fill up your pantry, lots of vegetables, whole grains, beans and lentils, lots of the tuber family, the potatoes are fine, the sweet potatoes are fine. It's not about carbohydrates, fat, and protein and finding the right combination. It's not about counting calories. Has anybody counted calories and hates it? Who has counted calories and hates it? It's not a sustainable way to live. Did God create us to count calories? He did not. When you eat whole plant foods, you never have to worry about calories. When you eat whole plant foods, you never have to worry about protein. Did you know there's more protein per calorie in kale, in romaine lettuce, and broccoli than a piece of steak? Did you know that? There's more protein in kale, broccoli, and romaine lettuce than a piece of steak. There's more bioavailable calcium in dark leafy greens than a cup of milk. God provided everything that your body needs when He created it in Genesis. It is all there. Protein, carbohydrates, fat, calcium, minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, phytochemicals, everything that your body needs to run optimally, He created, and when you eat it, your body starts to heal. So it's whole plant foods. It's avoiding processed foods. It's minimizing oil, 120 calories per tablespoon of oil. So every time we eat oil, it goes lips to hips in how many minutes? 3 minutes. It's ready for processing. It is minimizing the amount of animals. If we're going to consume animals, they should be grass-fed, free-range, like animals were designed to grow. And we're eating them like the ancient people did 2 or 3 times a week. Interestingly, we hear a lot about hunter-gatherers, right? The hunter-gatherer tribes. How many times did the hunter-gatherers actually come back with food that they killed? 1 out of 19. So most of the time, the hunter-gatherers were gatherers, and they hunted and ate meat occasionally. It just goes back to the same model that God created in Genesis, of eating mostly plants. Organic as often as you can, minimizing animals, eating them occasionally, and when you do, they're well taken care of. They're eating grass and they're free range. If you take that simple advice and apply it, your life will change. You'll never have to buy another diet book. You'll never have to watch another diet program. You'll never have to count another calorie. You'll never have to worry about the amount of protein and carbohydrates that you're consuming and whether or not the ratio is correct. You will have health and life. Now, what about what we think and what we believe? That's the second part of this. We talked about eating. Everybody pretty clear on that? We could go on for days of talking about this, but in general, that recommendation is what brings health and life to your body. What we think and what we believe is equally powerful. And the enemy has known this for a long time. And so many of us walk our lives out with continuation of lies that we've believed, holding on to pain, holding on to unforgiveness, holding on to bitterness and anger. And what happens when we do that? It's like taking one bite after another of sugar. It is a poison. When we hold those feelings and we think those thoughts, the lies, the pain, the emotions, it is like eating that Long John. One bite after another, constantly during the day, it causes the same level of injury in the body. Inflammation, cancer, heart disease. I had mentioned the first night that when somebody holds on to bitterness and anger, it increases their risk of heart attack by 7 times, even over people that are smoking. That's the field of psychoneuroimmunology that shows that when we have these toxic emotions, these poisonous emotions in our bodies, it has the same physical effect as the processed food, leading to disease. And the answer's in the Bible. Colossians chapter 3. Let's take a look. And this goes back to this really important point. God gave all of us an amazing gift, our free will and the ability to choose. We have the ability to choose. The enemy knows you have the ability to choose, and so his weapon is to influence your choice. That's exactly what he did with Adam and Eve in the garden. He influenced their choice, and through their choice, there were consequences. We have the ability to choose. We can choose what we put on our fingers and our fork and our plate and put in our mouth. We have a choice what we purchase at the supermarket. We have a choice what we think, believe, and feel each day. And here's what God says from Colossians about your ability to choose. He says, "But now you yourselves are to put off all of these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds." So we're to put off these things. It's like an emotional change of clothes. We get rid of these things. And then he says, "Put on the new man, who has renewed knowledge according to the image of him who created him." And we're to put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, forgiving one another, just as Christ forgave you. We are to put on just the same emotional clothing that Christ wore: forgiveness, kindness, patience, long-suffering, gentleness, meekness. We're to put on love, like it says in 1 Corinthians. We're to put on faith. We're to put on forgiveness. As we remove these things, as you heard last night from Marlene's testimony, as she forgave, her body changed. Her body's immune system started to ramp up and kill the cancer cells. When we forgive and we release others and we release ourselves, your immune system's function goes right through the roof. And you start to fight cancer cells. It starts to reverse heart disease. It starts to kill infections and viruses. It starts to heal old injuries. There's a direct tie between what you carry emotionally and how it influences the health of your body. And the answer God wove into the Bible and encouraged us to put off and to put on. So the answer for your health is simple. The keys are simple. You just have to simply take the keys, put them in the ignition, and turn it on. The keys are: eat mostly plants, organic, avoid the food that the world has created, put on those things that God has told us: love, kindness, especially forgiveness. And as Marlene shared, she had a very difficult childhood, very painful relationship with her father. And yet she chose to forgive him. And in her choice to forgive, it not only changed her, but it changed him. So we can use our power of choice that God's given us to align with his kingdom and to change other people's lives. So I want you to take those keys and apply them. And watch how your life changes and how you change the lives of people around you. And then I want you to step out and ask God, if you don't know yet, what is my calling? And he will show you what your calling is. And then I want you to walk out in your calling, touching the world for Christ with a strong, vibrant, healthy body and a strong, vibrant, emotional self, so that you can be effective for reaching the world for Christ. That is our calling. Now, I think I have a couple of minutes here. I want to take just a few minutes. It's our last night, and answer any questions that you might have before I turn this back over to Jonas. I have a few questions in my pocket, and I'll answer any questions. Lena, did you have a question? Yes. Lena asked the question, what about baked beans? I like baked beans too. So one of the things we just have to watch with baked beans, sometimes people put a lot of sugar in baked beans. So we just have to watch sugar. Now, some great alternative sweeteners in place of sugar are dates. You can get dates, put them with water in your blender, and you can blend and make date paste. You can do the same thing with dried figs. You can use applesauce as a sweetener. And so there are ways to use whole foods to sweeten food and avoid some of the sugar sweeteners. Your taste buds may take a little time to adapt, but within a short period of time, we make this wonderful chocolate pudding. It's avocados, believe it or not, organic cocoa, and some dates, and a few drops of stevia. And we take that to places, and people eat it up, and they have no idea that it's not chocolate pudding the way they would think about chocolate pudding. Then we tell them it's avocados and dates. They say, what? That was a good question. Thank you. So Mark asked a good question. What about the sugar in fruit? Because we hear that a lot today. Everybody's worried about sugar, and they say fruit sugar is harmful. Well, like from a spiritual standpoint, I say, would God put sugar in strawberries and blueberries if it was harmful? Probably not. A couple things. When they look at like people eating strawberries, it actually lowers your blood sugar when you're eating strawberries. There was another study, people with stage 4 esophageal cancer, they eat 1.5 pounds of strawberries a day, and 80% of the people went into remission with 1.5 pounds of strawberries. Some fruits for diabetics, they do need to be careful. The real sweet fruits like bananas, they can affect a diabetic's blood sugar. But if you're eating 4 or 5 servings of fruit per day, and it's whole organic fruit, you don't have to worry about the sugar in there.
Why is that?
Why is it that you don't have to worry about the sugar? The sugar in a fruit comes packaged with several things that influence its absorption. It comes packaged with fiber, which slows down the absorption from your stomach and small intestine because the fiber holds the sugar. It also comes packaged with phytochemicals, which are the little chemicals in the plant that help the plant to remain strong and healthy. And when you consume the fruit, the phytochemicals also influence the absorption of the sugar and the way the body utilizes that sugar. Thanks, Steve. That was a good question. Any other questions? Yes, Rose? What about coffee? Oh, we had to get to coffee, didn't we? So, in the big picture of things, we scale these things in. So the most important thing, if you have to make one change, is get rid of processed food. The next thing is to cut back on your animal products. Then some of these smaller things, for some people, coffee is an issue. Coffee can be a compensation for poor sleep patterns. Your body really needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So if we're cheating sleep and using coffee to try and jumpstart us in the morning, we're really probably doing ourselves harm because we're not resting. For some people, coffee can be an appetite stimulant. So they drink coffee and they get hungry and they eat sugar. So it can lead, for some people, it can lead them down paths of eating unhealthy food. For some people, the way their body processes caffeine, it can increase their blood pressure and increase their risk of heart disease. Because we're all a little bit biochemically different, there are other people that drink coffee and it actually lowers their risk of heart disease. So it has a different effect. But this is where you just want to be honest with yourself about food and say, is this compensation for bad sleep? Is it something that I'm really addicted to, and if I don't have it, I start getting anxious in the morning and I have to find a cup of coffee? Is it something that leads me down the road of craving sugar? Then if it's one of those things, you need to back off, and you slowly just taper down to decaf. And then the one thing I recommend if you're going to drink coffee is try to get organic, because the regular coffee has a lot of chemicals. Thank you. Lena, you have another question. What about syrup, maple syrup? That's a good question. Couple things with maple syrup. One, if you're buying maple syrup off the store shelf, look at the label. A lot of maple syrup is cut with high fructose corn syrup or sugar. So pure maple syrup is very expensive, which is good because then you use only a small amount, which is what you should use. So small amounts are okay. We make kale pancakes. We're a little bit extreme. We have green pancakes at our home. They're really good, I trust me, and we do use a little bit of syrup on there. So maybe 1 or 2 more, yes. What about oranges? If you're eating these things in balance, so if you're having an orange, 1 orange a day, or it's okay. If we're juicing oranges and drinking a lot of orange juice, we've changed the fruit. We've taken a lot of the sugar out, and it doesn't have the fiber, and that can alter your blood sugar. But if you want to have an orange, I enjoy an orange from time to time, and it's great. Yes, sir. Would it be beneficial? Yes, that would be a good step. A better step is to replace the fish with more vegetables and beans. But that's a better step. That's correct. Oh, the question was, would it be a good step to replace the red meat with a fish? I said, yes, that would be a good step, and the better step is to replace the fish with kale and beans and lentils. So that's a good step in the right direction. Yes, sir, in the back.
You know, when they come back and Jesus was talked to that lady at the well, and they come back and he was already trapped, and they asked him, where did you get the food? And he said, I have food you know not of. Can you kind of talk on that a little?
So he asked the question about Jesus when he was with the woman at the well, and his disciples asked him about the food, and he says, "You have food I have food that you don't know of." And I can't speak specifically to the food that he was eating. I don't know what he ate. I do know that fasting can be beneficial, and when we do fast, when we don't eat and we fast, it actually can revitalize our body. And there are a lot of studies that show that even short fasts of 16 to 18 hours every week improves your body's healing and regeneration over time. And so when we also think about the lifestyle of a believer, that we should be fasting regularly, that's another aspect that God wove into his plan for our lives, to be regular fasters, that actually enhances our physical body's health. Yes, Jean? The question was would a fish oil capsule every day be too much? So why do people take fish oil? Well, they don't eat fish, but what's the other reason they take fish oil? Why do we take fish oil? Anyone? To reduce inflammation, right? So if we are removing the inflammatory foods from our diet, all the processed food and oils, we're cutting down on the animals, our inflammation level goes down, we may not need much in the way of the omega-3 fatty acids. So fish oil is omega-3 fatty acid, which is anti-inflammatory. Omega-6 fatty acids are inflammatory, found in oils, red meat, some dairy. The average American, an ideal balance is 2 to 1, 2 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. Average American today, 20 to 40 to 1. So the studies then show that, yes, if you add omega-3s to your diet, it's beneficial because you're trying to make up for the 20 to 41 discrepancy. If you bring this down by eating the right foods, a whole food plant-based diet has a omega-3 to omega-6 balance of 2 to 1. It's optimal. Adding in some extra omega-3s may be helpful after 50. You can get it from an algae source. There's also omega-3s in almonds and leafy greens and chia seeds and pumpkin seeds, and so adding in those whole foods. All right, so David?
What would you recommend to stimulate the good bacteria in the gut? Getting the good bacteria going? Specific foods or just...
Yeah, so David asked the question, what specific foods will help the good bacteria in the gut? And it's really important. The microbiome, the gut bacteria, have been shown to influence all of our chemical reactions, including our brain and our mood and our hunger signals. So when those bacteria get upset and disrupted, stress, emotional problems, processed food, sugar, too much meat, disrupts it, it changes the way you think, feel, and hunger signals and inflammation in your body. So the optimal foods that feed that are foods that have fiber that feed the good bacteria, such as beans and lentils, such as dark leafy greens. Those are all foods that feed the bacteria, so the vegetables. Fermented foods are very beneficial. Low sodium foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, all can be beneficial. Living like a lot of us do in nature with animals helps to recolonize the bacteria. Avoiding chlorinated water is important. That helps. Avoiding antibiotics. When you take one round of antibiotics, it changes the bacteria for a year. It takes 1 year to recolonize the bacteria after one round of antibiotics. So doing as much as we can to stay healthy is important. So I think I'll turn the stage over. We could go on later. I'll be in the back if you have more questions. Oh, I have questions in my pocket, and I don't want to take up too much more time. So I'll answer these questions in the back if people want to join me later. I just want to tell you it's been such a pleasure and a joy and an honor being here with you again this year. And we will be back again next year. More information and more fun. And I'll try to think of something new to light up like a Long John next year. I want to pray God's blessing upon you. I pray that God will lead you and direct you. I pray that he will reveal his calling to you. I pray that he will cause you to rise up and be a light wherever you are in your community and with your friends, that the light of Christ will shine out of you into the darkness that's around you and touch the lives that are around you, and that you will have an opportunity to minister to other people and to share the good news of Christ with them, and to heal the brokenhearted, and to take care of the widows and the orphans, and to be the hands and feet of Jesus to the world. So God bless you all. A couple quick things. If you have the internet, you can find me on the internet, drscottstoll.com or fullyalivetoday.com. And there's some books and things I've written there. So God's blessings and peace be upon you. Thank you.